Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I was talking to the missus this morning, and what was it, Saturday morning, and she turned to me and said, what should we do this weekend? And I was thinking, something very satisfying about doing that. You know what? I think you ought to go and visit your sister, because it's been all this COVID thing. You need a break. You need to get out of the house, have a bit of time with your sister, good quality sister time. I'll be fine, don't worry. I'll do some housework or something like that. So, I'm carrying on with this wheel arch repair. I didn't videotape me making this second patch because you already saw this one. So, it's much the repeat of the same. Main thing is, main thing is this has got a kind of a twist to it, and there was a lot of, grinding and fitting, making sure my gaps are all consistent, and that's really it, really. Because this had been sitting around a while, it had a little surface rust on the back side, so I cleaned all that off and then put a primer, zinc primer behind here. Also, I bought some of that cavity. The cavity coating from Eastwood, that you can put a probe in and fill it up with a cavity sealant, make sure it doesn't rust from the inside out. So I'm just going to finish up spot welding along here, grinding it all up, and then remember this shock absorber mount, we're going to carry that plate up, say this is the metal, going to carry that plate up to about here, all the way along, just to represent this, fabricate this plate over it as it was from the factory. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'll get that finished up and I'll videotape the end of it. Okay, so you don't need to see all the details. Like I say, it's all much the same as I've been showing you before. As you know, as I've been making these videos, I've been trying to keep everything what's in control, as far as not stripping the whole thing down to every little nut and bolt, because I think that would be a little bit too much. Also storage of the parts and everything, so I'm kind of working my way, as I've said several times, from the front towards the back. Anyway, so one of the guys on the group, I think it was, on the Facebook Mercedes maintenance group, we were chatting about rotisseries, putting these cars on a rotisserie makes it an awful lot easier, obviously, to work on the underside of the car. I'm not getting any younger, and also my knees been giving me a bit of problem lately, so getting up and down from the ground is pretty tough work, And so I started the old wheels in motion, in the head. And he had a great suggestion, is that even if you buy one, you use it for 6 months, a year, or whatever, you can sell it on to somebody else that's also looking to do a job like this. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So when the time is right, I am going to drop the engine and transmission onto a cradle, lift the car up with a hoist, lift the front of the car, drag that engine and transmission out, set that off to the side, and obviously I can access the engine then and figure out what necessary maintenance items need to do on that. I don't know as yet. Any suggestion would be great. The engine is free cranking and everything. It turns round by hand, so it's not seized or anything like that. So I might maybe take the heads off and regrind the valves or something. Any suggestions would be welcome. I don't want to get into obviously a full engine tear down. I'm not doing that, because speaking to Pierre, these engines are pretty robust, and I have no reason to believe that there's anything wrong with it, particularly, fingers crossed. Maybe I'll insert a probe and check down into the bores and all that sort of stuff, but that's for a later date. But anyway, get that engine dropped, drive shaft off, right? Drop the rear axle, get that off, do all my upper repairs with the car on all 4 axle stands in position, reinforce the inside with some crossbars and what have you. That's something I'd like some advice on as well. Bracing the car for the rotisserie, because obviously this is unibody, you don't want to put it out of alignment. Make sure the doors are fitting properly, and then stick it on a rotisserie and then flip it, and so then I can do all of the grinding, all that under seal off, re-epoxy priming the bottom, getting it all really nice, do the engine bay all really nice, because I expect that I'm going to be doing the, I am going to replace the fuel lines and the brake line all the way to the back, and possibly the air lines underneath the car, all the way to the back valves. So that would obviously be a ton easier if the car's on its side. So that's the intention these coming months. I'm not sure, I'm kind of making notes how to plan my next stages, so to speak, so you can keep it all in order, you know, and not think about too much at once, you know, just concentrate on one step at a time. So I'm going to carry on with these kind of repairs that are all up on eye level here. So that's the plan. Also, I want to tell you, now I bought one of these little zip saws. Now I got one before, given to me as a birthday present, and it worked okay, but I think in the door video that I made, it struggled with the going through two pieces of 18 gauge, you know, overlapping steel. It did it, but it struggled, and I thought, this is no good, you know, bogging down all the time. So I did a bit of research, and for about 40 bucks more, so around $95, I got one of these air cap reciprocal saws, body saws. I tell you, this thing is a godsend. It's smaller, it's more compact, it's fairly slim, and just to give you an idea, I'm mocking up a reinforcement plate for the steering box. Now, the main underframe that the steering gearbox is attached to is 16 gauge steel, and I'm going to reinforce it on the outside with 12 gauge steel. So I think that adds up to around 3 millimeters of thick steel. Now, because you're welding 12 gauge to 16 gauge, it takes a little special technique to make sure that you don't blow through the 16 gauge with the welding, you know, with the MIG welder. So I've been practicing on some scrap, that's been going all right. So consequently, you've got 3 millimeters of steel, okay? This thing cut through 3 mil of steel, and it did not stall whatsoever. It just cut through it. And the only limitation is whether the blade wears out. It also, I had to cut the exhaust off. I had to make a kind of a strategic cut to cut the exhaust. This cut through an exhaust, and you know that kind of, you know, that thick piping, obviously you've got to go through the whole pipe on top and bottom at once, and this cut through it. Amazing tool. So if you need to cut in awkward areas or do some of this body work, invest in a really good body saw. You'll be glad you did. This is a little guide that goes up and down to adjust your depth, but wonderful little saw. Also, it's covered in white right now because I've been doing some sheetrock work in the house, but it's great for that as well. So for $95, this is amazing. Really good tool. Finished putting that panel back in. I'll get a closer view in a sec. But also remember, we had that kind of botched patch here where the shock absorber mount. I put a plate on here, stitch welded it here, and then put in, I think, 5 spots, the same as what is on the original here. I used 16 gauge steel on this to overlap, so we're pretty much back to stock here as it should be. This area is next. I'm going to make good these welds here. What I might do is re-spot weld some of the missing areas, clean that up, and then kind of feather it. This piece needs cutting off because this is rotted through. I'm going to cut back, make sure there's no rust in here. Tidy this little area up here. But that is pretty much it for all of this under fender here. There we go. So this was the one we did earlier, you know, the other day. This is the next one. We patched all that in. As you can see, it's gone in pretty well. I smoothed it out. Little deviation here. Again, though, not to worry too much because we're going to get some treatment on here, and then eventually I'm going to put epoxy primer, and then we're probably going to go for a coloured Raptor, the same body colour under the side here. And here's our little new plate here that I welded in, and just took my measurements, make sure I checked my other 108s to make sure that that is correct, coming up the right amount. Spot welded along, tack welded, and I treated behind here between this and this there is a zinc primer, as you can see, so there's no trapped moisture. Let me show you on the other side what botch job they did on this plate. There you go, see? Bloody awful mess they did here. They actually didn't spot welded it, they looks like stitch welded that on over this thing, over that, so it's like 3 layers. So obviously all that's got to be cut out, because as you know from the previous one I did on the other side, it's a rust trap basically. So this is going to be probably the next job I'm going to hit after I'm finished that wheel arch. This looks a lot worse than what it really is once you get into it and start fabricating stuff up, you know, section by section. There's a little bit of a blow through here. I'll cut this section out. What else we got going on here? A messy old patch here they've done. That's the air tank bracket, and then obviously you've got to fabricate it all round here. Looks horrendous, but we'll get through that. And then I've made a plate up. I don't think I've got it here. I've taken the pump off the steering gearbox, I should say, and in readiness for the reinforcement plate that I'm going to weld on here. So that is another job coming up. As for making up a plate for this, I've been recommended, someone told me I should use around 12 gauge steel overlapping onto this 16 gauge frame. Obviously I've got to make up a template at first, so that is the template, and this is the plate I'm going to be welding onto there. And what I'm going to do, obviously these have been built up, they're like sleeves and then welded all around. What I'm going to do is those obviously have to be flattened off, okay, cut and flattened off, and then those holes projected through on the reinforcement plate. And on the reinforcement plate itself, once those holes are there and located, I'll bolt it on there so I make sure it's in the right place, and then we'll weld it on. Now, so supposing I'm where the holes are on the reinforcement plate, I'm going to get a large washer in each of the locations and weld that on as well, so it's got a nice broad surface. So that'll add this whole frame up to around 3mm or more thick reinforcement. So that shouldn't have any worries about any frame cracking, you know, that apparently the 6.3s are known for in this area. So, well, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we'll wrap that door up in the next video, I promise. Get that final piece on, and then we'll move on to probably the well, this other corner here. I probably won't film that. Get this completely finished, and then move on to the other side and do that reinforcement plate on the steering box. And after that, drop in engine, take the driveline out, make a yoke up to hold the engine and transmission to roll that guy out from underneath. There's plenty to do. So, okay, alright, stay safe and well everyone. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, bye bye.